Hi everybody, my name is Bhavashya and in this lecture we'll see further down to what we were studying before, which is our designated router and backup designated router, and so far about type 2 LSA, right? aka network LSA. So let me revise of what we have studied so far. As you can see in this topology, we have this designated router. We have assigned R1 to B1, and then we have backup designated router to router 2, and all other routers are acting as DR others. So to summarize of what we have learned, so DR will make adjacency with our BDRs, right? After that, our DR others, DR others will make adjacency with BDR and DR, right? Now, and with DR, DR others will make adjacency. As you saw, they will make adjacency only with designated router and backup designated router. But with DR others, with their identical or their other DR others, they will not make adjacency, but they will make neighborship, or we can say they will be in a two-way state. They'll be in two-way state. Clear, right? Yes. Designated router and with backup designated router, adjacency. DR other will make adjacency with BDR and DR. Right? Great. Now, to understand it in a good manner, let me delete the designated router and backup designated router. And also this BDR. Let me hide it somewhere. Okay. So now here in this topology, we only have DR others. Now you will understand how they'll act. Now let's suppose R6. Now here R6 will make two-way state with R3. It will make two-way state with R4 with R5, right? And when we will use the command show IP interface brief, there in the entry we'll see three interfaces, which will be R3, R4 and R5, right, with respect to R6. And also when we will use the command show IP OSPF neighbor, there also we will see three entries, entry 1, entry 2 and entry 3, right? Yes. Now if you want to revise of what we have studied before, so every router generates type 1 LSA, right? This is what you have learned. And only type 2 LSA or network LSA is being generated by designated router, right? Only by designated router. So let me reopen this. Now here I have a short concept to tell you guys, which is, for that let me draw different topology. Okay, so here we have a new topology where we'll look at the concept of point-to-point connection, and also we'll see how Ethernet acts. So when in this case, when we enable the router with OSPF and everything will happen, so one will become DR and the other one will become BDR, right? But if I want it to be enabled with OSPF and I don't want it to become PDR or DR, so in that condition, I will configure it to be point-to-point connection. In that, what will happen? They will do not act as DR or BDR, right? Because there is no need to be made of DR and BDR. Now, if I want to tell you why it's happening, so for that you have to understand that this is basically fast Ethernet, or the older version is Ethernet, right? So Ethernet is used for LANs. When we talk about the serials, so it is used in WAN, right? So in the previous version, in the initial versions of the routers when we've been connected, so there we used to see serial, right? S0, S1, right? And that the serial ones have the property of point to point, right? But when we have this Ethernet, so Ethernet has this property, that inherent property of broadcasting, right? So in that broadcasting, that DR and BDR has the place to happen, but not in the serial ones, because the inherent property is of point to point, right? So this is why where we don't need DR and BDR to happen, this is where we use this serial ones, right? Or point to point. So serial ones are the older ones. So we do configuration of point to point, right? And also, this is one example. And the other example is when I introduce switch in between. So let me do it. And here in this condition, if we compare both of the one, this, let's suppose case 1 and case 2, both of the one are same, because the cable which is used is fast Ethernet, right? And the inherent property of fast Ethernet is to broadcast. So both of them are same, right? Now, if I want to revise of what we have learned in this lecture, is when we want to be in the routers, when we want them to become the designated router or the backup designated router, this is where we use fast Ethernet, right? And in the place where we don't want them to be participated in that DR or BDR selection, so there we use point to point configuration, right? We do it explicitly. So this was it in this lecture. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.